And the title of the lesson pretty much sums it up. Operations. Add, subtract, multiply, and divide functions. So the stuff in this section, except for the very last part that we'll do, you've done before. Just going to look a little different. But you've added functions before. So all of the homework problems, they're going to give you a couple functions, and then you will add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So there in example 1, f of x equals x squared minus 3x plus 1. So that is f of x. That's what the f of x part is, kind of the same as if it said y equals. So that's what f of x is. If you're supposed to add f of x, this is what you're going to add, this function right here. And then g of x equals 4x plus 5. So you have added things like that before. Just like I said, it's going to look a little bit different the way it's written today. But it's not really anything new. So it'll say f plus g of x. That's how you read that, f plus g of x. So all that means is you're adding f function and the g function. So if you're adding them, you got x squared minus 3x plus 1. That's f, and then plus g, which is 4x plus 5. In this case, it wouldn't matter, but it's probably not a bad idea to get in the habit of putting those in parentheses, because whenever you have to subtract them, the parentheses will be important. And so this is what we've done before. You've seen this. We had that on the last test that we took. You just didn't put this f plus g of x part out in front of you. So we just combine like terms. Do we have any more x squareds? No, so that's obviously part of your answer. And just like always, you can cross off as you combine. So then we have negative 3x plus 4x, which would be positive x. And 1 plus 5 plus 6. So that is f plus g of x. And that's your final answer. Once you've got to simplify all your terms combined. So using the same function there, you can do f minus g. So x squared minus 3x plus 1. And again, this is where it's going to be important to have the parentheses. Still have the x squared. And then we have negative 3x, and this time it's minus 4x, which would be negative 7x. And 1 minus 5 minus 4. It doesn't really matter the order. I won't do the example, but if it said g minus f of x, it's the same thing. You just take g is going to be the first one you write. 4x minus 5 would come first on that problem. So just pay attention to the order. The most important thing, just like all of last chapter when we had these problems, is that whether you're adding or subtracting or multiplying, which is what we're going to do next. So if it says to add and you obviously multiply or do any other operation, it's going to be wrong. So just pay close attention to which operation you're supposed to be doing. F of x equals 3x squared minus 2x. Plus 1. And g of x x minus 4. And again, that will be part of your directions. The f of x and g of x, they'll be given in the directions, and then it will say to find f plus, f minus, and so on. So this one wants us to first find f times g. So that will be written with a closed dot. F times g of x, multiplying the two now. So we do the same thing. 3x squared minus 2x plus 1. You don't even need a sign in between there. We're multiplying times x minus 4. So the multiplying problems could be a little longer. The dividing problems are pretty short. There's not even really any work to show on those once you've written it down. So anybody know what we would do first here? We've done problems like this before. What? Distribute, kind of. Basically multiplying what? Take the x, right? Times all three numbers in there. So you're going to get 6. You're going to multiply the x times all three, and then the negative 4 times all three, and you're going to have 6 numbers. Just combine your like terms. So the first one, x times 3x squared, would be 3x to the third, and then x times negative 2x minus 2x squared. And notice that's putting those rules that we learned way back, that now you've got to just know those, because that is multiplying with the same base. Add the exponents, and that's how you get x squared there. And then x times 1 plus x. So we've done our x term, now we do the negative 4. So negative 4 times 3x squared minus 12x squared negative 4. What? Plus 8x. Who said cubed? This one doesn't have an x, so it's just 4 times 3. And then minus 4. Then you just go back in, combine your like terms. You don't have any more cubes, always start with the highest exponent. Cross off. So we have negative 2x squared minus 12x squared. Minus 14x squared. X plus 8x. Plus 9x. And minus 4. And that would be your final answer for that problem. And then there's not really any other order. Even if these two were switched around for multiplication, you'd still end up with the same answer. So there's not really an order, or there's not really a second way to do the multiplication. But using those same two functions, f and g up there, we're also going to do f divided by g of x. So which function goes on top? What? A little louder. F goes on top. So 3x squared minus 2x plus 1 over x minus 4. And even if you tried, I don't think you could simplify that one down anymore. But later in the chapter and in next chapter, we'll be factoring this top to get it down to the 2 factors, and then we'll usually be able to cancel something. So again, that's what's coming down the road later on, which that's why quad 3 last time that I showed you will really help you out, because you'll be able to get those factors out of your calculator really simple and cross off what's in common. But almost, if not all, I don't think you'll be able to cancel any of this stuff in this section. So the division problems, you're just going to write this part out. That's going to be your answer. So those are pretty simple. Whatever's on top, put on top and be done with it. Questions on that so far? 4 operations. That's the stuff that's not new. And then the last thing will be new, and sometimes it can be a little tricky for some. Composite functions is what we're going to cover in the last part. And if you pay close attention, and we'll do several of these examples, I think you'll get it. The first one might be a little tricky. Just stay with me. So for this one, f of x equals x plus 3 and g of x equals x squared plus x minus 1. So that part's no different. If I told you to add two functions together, you could now do that, combine your like terms. But composite functions, the first thing I want you to see, this will have an open circle. It'll look like that. That's not multiplication because the circle is not closed. What I want you to get in the habit of doing is when you see that, I want you to write it like that. They mean the same thing. This one is not as confusing to me as the FOG. So whenever you see this in your book, because all the directions are going to say to find this, that's not what I want you to write. I want you to write this one. The letters are in the same order, just have a parenthesis instead of the little open circle. That's read f of g of x. And it's the same no matter what the order is. They may want you to find g of f of x with the open circle. So again, don't write that in your homework. It's g of f of x. Okay, so make sure you do that. Just replace the open circle with that next thing down there. So then getting back to what we're finding in this problem, because this is what they want you to find. We're going to find f of g of x. That's a composite function. You're putting them together. So watch closely. What this means then is that you're going to take whatever function this is, in this case it's g of x, you're going to actually take that function and you are going to put it into the f. You're going to replace the x's in this function with whatever g of x is. So here's your g of x. X squared plus x minus 1. So we've got the same thing circled here, up here. And you are actually going to take g of x then and replace the x in the f function. That's what a composite function is, putting the two functions together. So you're taking this second function, g of x, and plugging it into the f function. So we took what g of x equals up here, and we are replacing the x in that function. So instead of x here, what do we have? There you go. X squared plus x minus 1, and then what's the rest of the f function? Plus 3. And then you just simplify as best you can. Only one like term there. We have x squared plus x, and that would be plus 2. And so they'll also want you to find g of f of x. So now which function are we going to plug in? You're going to plug in f right? Into G, so it's just the opposite of what we just did. Now you're going to take the F function here, and you're going to plug it in. Now you got two of them over on this one, so you got to replace both. So instead of x right here, x squared, what are we going to plug in there? So we have, and we will use parentheses, x plus 3 squared plus x plus 3 and then minus 1. So what do we have to do first? So what would we have? You said 4. Thank goodness. Yeah, again, I baited you right there, and a lot of you fell for it. And the reason I did that was yet again to point out you cannot square the x and square the 3. Can't. And several of you are catching on, and that's good. This is a FOIL problem. And as I told you, you can either write the FOIL situation right there and then get your simplified, or what I generally like to do is write that off to the side, FOIL it, and then plug in my answer. So if we FOIL, we would have x squared plus what? Plus 3x plus 3x plus 9. So what would we have in the middle there? So that's what I'm talking about. Then you can replace that x squared plus 6x plus 9 plus x plus 3 minus 1. And that way you don't have to go down the page as far on that. So we don't. What? Yeah, but we got x's first.
Okay.
So we got x squared, and then 6x plus x plus 7x, and then yes, the 9, the 3, and the 1. So 9 plus 3 minus 1 plus 11. We'll do another one of those, but are there any questions on the composites before we do? So let's do f of x, 3x squared minus x plus 4. G of x equals 2x minus 1. And we're finding f of g of x. So we are going to take g of x again and plug it into f. So here's g of x, and we are going to plug that in for both of those x's. And you can circle, if that helps. But both of those have to be replaced. So we would have 3 times 2x minus 1 squared minus 2x minus 1 plus 4. So what do we have to do again? Gotta FOIL again. We'll have my true off to the side. So we have 4x squared minus 2x minus 2x plus 1. Then what do we have to do? Distribute the 3. And it doesn't really matter where you do that. You could multiply that times 3 up there and plug that in, or put that there and then distribute the 3. So this would become 4x squared minus 4x plus 1. That's what you would put in right here. And you've got the 3 out front that you have to distribute. And again, you can do that all right there. It's whatever, however you want to do that. So let's go ahead and distribute the 3. So we would have what first? 12x squared minus 12x plus 3. And then what I would do here is distribute that negative inside there. So you would have minus 2x, and then negative 1 would be plus 1 plus 4. That way you've got all your numbers listed out there ready to combine. Just make sure with that negative you do distribute that in there and change those signs. So we got negative 12 minus 2 again. And 3 plus 1 plus 4. What? 8. So hopefully you've got the basics down for composites. They will change it up a little bit on you. And they might want you to do G of F of 2 instead of G of F of X. These are actually easier because you'll get it solved down to a number rather than having a long polynomial out there. So what are you going to plug in this time? You would circle this, which is F of 2, and you plug F of 2 into the G. What's the problem, though? Right, you don't know what F of 2 is. So this is a little different. These are actually kind of separate. First, you have to find F of 2, and then plug that into the G. So you still use the same functions. Here's F of X. So first we need to find F of 2. So how do we do that? What's that mean? Plug in the 2. Pretty simple. So we do 3 times 2 squared minus 2 plus 4. So 2 squared is 4 here times 3, 12 minus 2 plus 4 is what? 14. So now we know what F of 2 is. We can replace that with what? What is F of 2? 14. So now instead of finding G of F of 2, we can replace that, and all we need to find is G of 14. So we go over to the other function and replace the X. So it'd be 2 times 14 minus 1. Is what? 27. That would be your final answer for that. So like I said, if they give you a number, it's actually a little easier because you don't have all the X's to worry about. You can actually solve it down and get an answer. So let's look over at some homework. Be on page 388 and 389. 1 through 9 all, and that has examples of everything that we just did. 14 to 19 all. And 28 to 44 even.